The star of the show today is going to be my friend and colleague, Senator Dean Flores. But I wanted to kick off this press conference because this is a very, very important announcement. When I was sworn in as leader of the state Senate in December, I told my colleagues that it was time to shake it up. I want to commend Senator Flores today for taking the Senate Agriculture Committee and, in fact, shaking it up. The new committee, which we will now call the Senate Food and Agriculture Committee, is an acknowledgement of the central role that food plays in our lives, while also being mindful of how important agriculture is to California's economy. No one in the legislature understands these issues better than the majority leader, Senator Dean Flores. He is a longtime leader in California on agricultural issues, from food safety to worker safety, from pesticides to air quality in the Central Valley. In expanding the scope of the Ag Committee, Senator Flores will add a unique and needed consumer perspective to the legislature's oversight of how California's food goes from our farms to our tables. I am thrilled that Senator Flores is willing to take on this assignment and that he's taking this committee in a whole new direction. Please welcome the new chair of the committee and the majority leader, Senator Dean Flores.
Thank you, Gary.
And I've got to get back downstairs. Yeah. We have a little budget crisis. I don't know if anybody knew. Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. I do want to say thank you to Senator Steinberg. I know that he's got very important business, obviously, with the budget. But I think, as the Pro Tem mentioned, we are trying to change the paradigm of food and food policy in the state of California. And I obviously, as you probably know, most consumers are worried not just about price, but lately, over the last few years, about safety. And there's no doubt that food safety is very important to the public. I can tell you that there's a growing sense of urgency in terms of how safe our food is. Ultimately, what kind of oversight we have here in the legislature over the various commissions in the state of California. We've read many articles about tomato commissions, avocado commissions, a few others that we really would like to begin to ask some very important questions. No doubt that alternative types of foods are very important. Organics, people care about organic, local, pasture-based, and humane types of food production. And I can tell you that what we're trying to do is trying to, of course, remain competitive in agriculture, but at the same time recognize that agriculture is very much moving to a changing market. Not only is the political constituency changing when it comes to agriculture and food, but I can tell you that I think the Pro Tem has seen that we need a committee in the California Senate that deals with food and agriculture. And if at least you think this is some monumental change in the environment, recognize that we do have a department in California called the Department of Food and Ag. So wouldn't necessarily say this is very much different in terms of trying to match up what we should be doing here in the legislature. I can tell you that the reason I think this is a big paradigm shift for the legislature is that for the first time this committee is not just going to look at the production of food, we're going to look at the distribution of food, and we're also going to be talking about the consumption of food, how food is consumed, why it's consumed, nutrients, the whole issue of trying to get much more further into the discussion of food. And you've all seen this come up time and time again in the legislature, things like trans fats, things in many cases that might end up in a health committee will probably end up, if you will, in the Senate Ag Committee. And of course, safety is one of our biggest concerns. There's no doubt that we've had, as you know, we've lived through a beef recall here most recently, where the USDA has said we promise it's safe, and yet we've had one of the more massive recalls. And as you remember, just last year with our schools and reimbursement and all of those issues were very important. Leafy greens and the spinach industry, of course, has been something we've been very interested in terms of foodborne illness. We're very much interested in picking up that discussion. And I can tell you that the committees are going to have our first hearing on February the 3rd, a couple Tuesdays from now, on the whole issue of organics and why CDFA allowed for, if you will, some non-organic material to be placed in our food supply, and why aren't we doing more oversight over that, and how are we going to correct that. In fact, farm to fork types of hearings you can expect from this committee. We're very interested in making sure that consumers believe that food that they eat is safe. And of course, as the Pro Tem mentioned, sustainable agriculture as a movement is something that we're very interested in from this committee's perspective. It isn't just how we grow and process and eat food, but also the issues that come about because of food, whether it be healthcare, energy independence, or even climate change. And I don't have to mention to you the carbon footprint that agriculture leaves. Trying to figure out how to sustainably grow agriculture is something that we're very much interested in. And animal welfare, I should say, is part of this commission, part of our issue here. I can tell you that animal welfare issues is going to be very much at the forefront of this committee. There's no doubt Prop 2 was a wake-up call for most Californians. And hopefully people will see that we need to recognize that there has to be some accommodation for animal welfare issues in the state legislature, and particularly here in the state Senate. I'd like you to hear from a few folks that we've invited to this press conference today, but more importantly, I'd like to hear from one of my colleagues, Lonnie Hancock, who will be a new member of the Senate Ag Committee. Senator Pavley will also be a member of the committee. But I am very thankful that we have Lonnie here, and maybe Lonnie can say a few words, and then I'd like to have Wayne Pacelle, Luke Cole, and a few others make a few statements, and then we'll take any questions. So come on up, Lonnie.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dean. I am delighted to be appointed to this very important committee. I've carried legislation on this issue. I represent an urban constituency that cares passionately about its food safety, its food security, and both the human and environmental way that we feed ourselves. And particularly, we've done some groundbreaking work on the school-to-farm connection and how we really get our institutional buyers, like our schools, connected to the local farms that could serve them. As a person who chaired the Natural Resources Committee in the Assembly before coming over to the Senate for 4 years, I know, as Senator Flores said, the environmental impacts of agriculture. The fact that in 1940 we produced almost 2.5 calories of food for each calorie of fossil fuel energy that we used. Now, it takes 10 calories of fossil fuel energy to produce 1 calorie of food, our highly processed food, our food that's transported all over the place. I have watched California lead the way in taking action on global warming and greenhouse gas emissions. I believe that in looking at this issue in this holistic way, we're going to break new ground, not only for California, but for the country.
Thank you, Lonnie. Appreciate that. Okay, Wayne, you want to come up, and then we'll have Luke after that, and Mark.
Yeah, I'm Wayne Pacelle, President and CEO of the Humane Society of the United States, and I want to thank the Majority Leader for his leadership broadly, and then specifically with this committee. I will restrict my comments just briefly to the issue of animal welfare. The Humane Society was involved with 2 big issues on animal welfare in 2008. One was the issue of an undercover investigation we did at the Hallmark Westland slaughter plant that was specializing in spent dairy cows in Chino, California. That investigation led to the largest meat recall in American history. It led to 8 congressional hearings, largely about the safety of the food supply and the mistreatment of animals too sick or injured to walk. And if we had had proper oversight on this issue in California, perhaps that undercover investigation would not have been necessary. And it was $1 billion cost to the industry because of the findings of this investigation. We hope we can avoid that and work together with industry. And I hope that this committee pulls all of us together to reach for solutions. The second issue is Proposition 2, the measure to ban the inhumane confinement of veal calves, breeding pigs, and laying hens. This measure, despite a very vigorous opposition campaign, got 63.5% of the vote. It won in 47 of 58 counties. It got more votes than any citizen initiative in California history. And I think that speaks to the issue that the public does care about production agriculture, does care about the cost of food, but it also cares about animal welfare. It cares about the environment, about food security. We need a committee to balance all these interests, and I think under Senator Flores' leadership we'll have that balance. Thank you.